So let's start right here. Like I said, when I was talking to you, we started to circle and go full circle. So the season one finale of Extinct or Alive aired around the end of July. So is there any things you want to spoil here? Is there going to be a season two? Has it got picked up yet? Do you know anything like that?
Unfortunately, I don't have that information yet. There's nothing I can share there.
Sure.
Fingers crossed. Anybody who likes the show, I fully encourage you to support it by letting Animal Planet know. But the thing is, this is what I do for a career. So regardless of TV shows, I will continue to pursue this.
Cool, man. So, again, I appreciate you doing this. And I was channel surfing a few months ago, and it said Extinct or Alive. And I love anything animals, like Net Geo Wild, etc., etc. So I love stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I seen Extinct or Alive, and I was like, oh, what is this? And it was the Tasmanian tiger. And from that moment, man, I was hooked. So just for a second here, talk about how that show came about, how Naked and Afraid is Naked and Afraid. Or I'm sorry, not Naked. Yeah, Naked and Afraid. You go on Naked and Afraid, and then you get Extinct or Alive. So how did you get Naked and Afraid, and how did that regenerate to Extinct or Alive? Sorry, I stumbled on my words there.
No, it's all good. Look, that's a longer story, but long story short, I grew up in Southern Africa.
Sure.
I was always in the bush, always around wildlife, and then I was always very focused on that through college, post college. I knew I wanted to be a wildlife biologist, and I worked with increasingly rare, high risk wildlife, and then. I was a biologist working on all kinds of contracts, doing all kinds of different biological work, and then one day I was sitting on the couch with my girlfriend, and she said to me, "Oh, look at this show. You should do this. This would be fun. You do this survival stuff just to get out further than everybody else and practice like wildlife science." And I'm like, "Yeah, that's a good idea." Sent in an email, and a couple weeks later, I was on a plane to Panama. Now, fast forward, show came out, show being Naked and Afraid. I did this 21-day survival challenge in Panama.
Sure.
Show came out, and it was very well received. I did really well. I got scored incredibly high from the survival rating and all this different stuff. And I had this little window of opportunity with which to kind of explore media, and as opposed to what would happen was all these reporters started contacting me, and they'd contact me, and they'd say, "Tell me about Naked and Afraid. Tell me about running around the jungle naked,
Sure.
Eating oysters and having a partner." And I'd say, "Yeah, cool, I can talk about that. Here's some information. I did this, I did that." But, what's way more interesting is the work I do with wildlife. I'm a biologist. Here's a picture of me, capturing a 20-foot anaconda in the Amazon and putting a tag in it. Or here's me working with lions in Southern Africa. And then all these reporters that originally reached out about Naked and Afraid were like, "Oh my God, this is far more interesting than the naked reality show," and that led to a flurry of news stories, articles, things on CNN, the Daily Mail, the Telegraph about this biologist who did all this crazy high-risk wildlife work with endangered animals, and this biologist was me. Now, skip forward a little bit again, and I get introduced to a producer down in Los Angeles who goes, "Man, I'm a huge wildlife guy. I love wildlife. I love what you do. Let's do a show." And I was like, "Oh, that sounds interesting. I've been on TV once before. I'm pretty happy being a biologist. I would have to get you to BD." He said, "Bill, I have this great concept." And the name was different at the time, but this great concept was Extinct or Alive.
Sure.
And we sat down. We had brunch of all things. And we kind of rounded out the idea, and he told me how he pitched the networks and everything else. And from that point to where we got to season one was nearly 3 years. But
Wow.
because of how long it took to do these expeditions and plan everything and yada yada. And sure enough, now the show's out and it's done very well.
Right. And I'm just gonna say this, guy. You are one crazy SOB. There was one episode. There was one episode I was watching, and I think it may have been the same episode. Forgive me if I'm wrong, but I watched I think there was like 8 or 9 episodes of the first season, and I watched them all back to back. So there was one where you were in the jungle, and you quickly said, "Holy crap! Look at this!" And it's a snake, and it was a big old giant boa constrictor thing, and you picked it up, put it over your shoulder. And then later on that night, you were looking for one of the extinct or alive animals you were looking for, and you stood out there, no flashlight, sat in the middle of a freaking jungle. And so what would happen if, let's say you had no flashlight, or you had a flashlight, you just weren't turning on, you were waiting for them to come to that trap and eat whatever you set out for them. What would happen if an animal did come up behind you and it was growling? I mean, are you? I know you're a wildlife biologist, but are you? I don't really know what that stands for, but like, are you technical in if this animal attacks, I know how to get away, what to do to keep it away. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, look, I think the question you might be asking is, do I have a firearm or any ability to protect myself? And the short answer is no. I take what I consider to be calculated risks.
Sure.
Is it crazy to the average person? Yeah, probably, but I also understand the concept of wildlife and the behavior patterns better than the average person. So, do I know that there's a risk sitting in a blind, putting out a distress fawn call in wolf territory? Absolutely. I understand that completely. But for me, the overwhelming excitement and thrill of being able to experience, these wolves coming into the collar or run right beside me outweighs the risk associated with what could happen if things went wrong.
Sure. So to me, you are the next Steve Irwin, the next crocodile hunter, just for not just crocodiles or snakes, just in wildlife in general. So I mean, I was a big fan of that guy growing up, and so to see somebody kind of step forward into the footsteps, it puts a real appreciation on you.
Well, thank you. That's a huge compliment. I mean, I'm not an old guy, so I more or less grew up with him as well. And he was a huge inspiration to me as a kid. I mean, growing up in Africa, if I didn't, if I wasn't in the bush catching snakes, if I ever had the TV on, it was watching him. So that's a huge compliment, and I admire that man greatly. So it's a thing really to be in that position.
Right. So before I get any more questions, I want to do a little. I do kind of a hodgepodge games here. So I got 6. It's going to be really fast questions. Let's see how good of the wildlife biologist you are. So this is called Which Animal with Forrest Galante. So first question: which animal has the strongest bite?
Strong down force or up force? That's 2 different answers.
Do both. I have both of them here.
Both. Okay. Well, it's the crocodile and the hyena, is my understanding.
Okay. Which animal has the strongest sense of smell?
Have to be some kind of canine. Couldn't say off the top of my head. Probably a wolf.
I have a bear here. I don't know how accurate mine is, but I have a bear.
Could be. No, it could be. Go on. I like this. It's fun.
Sure. Which animal has the strongest immune system?
Strongest immune system? I don't know if you consider it an animal, but it would have to be some kind of bacterial amoeba.
Okay, I have alligator written down here, but I'm pretty sure that's one of them. You're the biologist, not me.
That's a little more generic.
So which animal has the strongest kick?
Strongest kick?
I have 2 answers written down here, so I can take both or just one or whatever,
Either, I imagine, giraffe or red kangaroo?
It's a giraffe or a cassowary bird. Is that how you say it? Cassowary bird?
Oh, yeah. I've been chased around the jungle by cassowaries. They're terrifying.
Which animal is the biggest animal in the world? I mean, I'm pretty sure anybody can guess this.
The blue whale.
That's correct. Which animal is the smallest animal in the world?
The smallest animal in the world? I mean, are we talking mammal or microbial, or what scale are we on here?
I guess just an animal in general. I just searched this into Google and went to the website.
There's an animal called a water bear that might be the smallest animal in the world.
What I have is the Etruscan shrew.
Oh yeah, no, this is like could fit in the eyeball of a shrew.
Oh, okay, all right. So my calculations was wrong. You're the biologist here, not me. So I want to go back to your growing up life. So you were born in the USA, according to ForrestGalante.com, but then you were raised in Zimbabwe. Why? What was the generating between USA and Zimbabwe? What was your parents? Why did you go to Zimbabwe?
Well, my family, it's 6th generation Zimbabwean, so my family is longer than white people have been in Yeah, I got married. They lived in America for a while, and then I was born here, and I flew back over when I was several months old. I remember, believe it or not.
Mm-hmm. So, your mom was one of Africa's first female pilots. So, what was that like growing up in Africa with your mom being a female pilot, or just being a pilot in general? Because I know if any one of your parents or someone you're related to is a pilot, it means you're going to spend a lot of your time in the air, in the plane with them.
Well,
am I correct?
He was a bush pilot, so we had very small bush planes. So it was a big pilot, maybe sitting on a Virgin flight or something like that. No, this was different to that. And it was great. I mean, I flew all over really remote rural Africa. I've been in 2 plane crashes, and I'm still here. And it was an amazing way to grow up. I mean, literally the sky's the limit when your family runs small planes into safari camps.
Sure. So you got into wildlife at a very young age, as you stated before. What drew you to animals? I mean, because a little kid, I mean, they're military, they're guns, army, stuff like that. What drew you to animals?
Well, I didn't have exposure to cars, guns, that kind of stuff. I grew up on a farm, and my family, like I said, had safari businesses. So I think I was just always surrounded by wildlife, and the thing that used to happen a lot was I'd be in camp, and when you're 5 years old, you can't exactly go running around the bush by yourself. I mean, you will get eaten. It's not like going camping, in North America. And so, I would be the one stuck in camp while my family was out running a safari, and I'd be flipping over logs and grabbing snakes and spiders and putting them in jars, and I tell this story a lot, which is remember when you're a kid and you flip over a log and you see an earthworm, and you're like, oh my God, look at that earthworm, that's amazing. You get fascinated by it. Right. Most people grow out of that, right? I wanted to know more about the earthworm. I wanted to know what made it tick, how big it got, where it came from, all that kind of stuff. So I just, I was always surrounded by wildlife, and the fascination just continued to grow.
Right. So, as we've said it before, we went over the Naked and Afraid thing, but I want to go back to the Naked and Afraid and then hit on Extinct or Alive a little bit more before we get off here, because I know you're short on time.
Sure.
But on Naked and Afraid, I watch it all the time. We see, they strip down, and then they meet the person, and then they go on with their lives, try to hit the 3 or 4 weeks they're supposed to survive. What is the toughest part about you being on Naked and Afraid? I mean, because there's cameras and all that. What is the toughest part about it? Or what was the toughest part for you in general?
I mean, I think everybody has a different answer to this question, because I'm pretty good friends with a number of people that have done that show.
Right.
And look, it's the real deal, right? Nothing is fake at all, in the sense that they dump you out in the middle of the bush and you have nothing, and you're not supposed to engage with the camera team. You're supposed to get on with your life, and it's tough. So for me, what was the most difficult was probably the constant exposure to the elements. Like, you're never temperate without clothes, you know what I mean? You're either too hot or too cold all the time.
Right.
But overall, if you see my episode, I didn't struggle with it. I, in fact, enjoyed it and was pretty smiley and had a really good time. Other people, I know the food thing is the biggest thing. Like, they really struggle not having enough calories and losing all the weight and losing energy. But we actually didn't struggle as far as lack of food. Big part of that, the location we were in was just, it was just so abundant. And being a biologist, I was able to identify a lot of the wild edibles. So it's different for everybody. I think the psychological factor versus the physical factor is a big question. And for me, it was probably the physical factor of the exposure to elements.
So, was it weird being on Naked and Afraid, being with another naked woman other than your girl? I mean, I know this is a weird question, but this is what I think about. This is what I have thoughts when I'm watching. Was it weird being with another naked woman besides, your girlfriend, etc.?
Yeah, it's such a funny thing, because even being in my position, sitting here in my home, watching TV, I go, oh, that's weird. But when you're in the situation,
sure,
sexuality, the nudity, none of that matters. It's about survival. And, there's nothing erotic about it. There's nothing attractive about it. You're filthy, you're muddy, you're gross, you're just skimping by to survive. And therefore, no, it's not weird. get over the nudity thing within, I'd say, 30 minutes of meeting the person, and then that's it. You're just getting on with the sound.
So you go from Naked and Afraid, and then 3 years later you land, or you land the Extinct or Alive show. So of all season, I think there's 8 episodes. I don't want to be incorrect, but I don't have my math here. I think there's 8 or 9 episodes of the first season. What was, to me, my favorite was the Tasmanian tiger. What was one of your favorite things that you got to realize if it was extinct or alive, or investigate?
Well, look, they're all different, and I'm biased in the sense that to me all wildlife is fantastic, from earthworms to leopards. But I think the most exciting one for me was, of course, the Zanzibar leopard, and the reason being that we actually captured crystal clear HD video footage of an animal believed to be extinct for 25 years.
Sure.
So, the outcome of that outweighs any of the searching for any of the other creatures, or
sure,
side encounters or anything. The fact that we were actually able to show an animal that has been believed extinct for 25 years, and a big, 100-pound cat, not a little animal, was overwhelmingly exciting.
Sure. So we got about 13 minutes here, 10 minutes, somewhere around there. So I want to try to get just a little bit more out. Not a lot. No brain busters, but there was one episode in general. I don't remember what episode it was because I don't have the listings here. But there was, you got the thermal camera out on a drone, and you were seeing. I think it was one of a tiger or a wolf or something like that, and you seen that it ran so fast and it was so tall, and you said that has to be this because nothing else is like that. But are you 100% sure the time you see that, if you haven't seen it with your own eyes, that it's that type of animal? I mean, do you go back and do further research?
Yep, 100%. Look, as a scientist, there's actually 2 different instances where we captured thermal footage that I would have said, that's the animal.
Sure.
But as a scientist, you have to be skeptical, and you cannot say 100% that's it, confirmed, done deal. It doesn't work that way. You can do that. You can do that emotionally and have that emotional attachment to something, but the reality is, without clear proof, genetic material, clear imagery, it is not a proven thing. So, I think you're referring to where we had 2 wolves on the thermal throne running side by side in Newfoundland.
Correct.
Look, we're over 100 miles from where the nearest domestic dog could be.
Right.
It's way bigger than any coyote in history. They're massive, big canines. They're running in a sense that anybody who's ever seen a wolf or even a big dog run goes, yep, that's a big canine. So to me, it's pretty obvious what it was. But can I say with 100% confidence that we found wolves? No, I cannot, because we have thermal image. We do not have genetic viable material. And I am a true scientist, and so I go in with a very skeptical mind.
Okay, sure. So let's get away from the business sense, and for a few minutes while we still have a little time, let's just shoot the bull real quick. So when you're on the road, what do you like when you're on the road flying or something? Do you watch any kind of movies, any kind of TV shows that you're enjoying right now at the moment?
At the moment, man, I finished Westworld not too long ago, and that was season 2. I love Game of Thrones. I read a lot of pretty dense, pretty heavy biological literature, which is not something that's very fun to talk about as far as like entertainment value.
Sure. I read a lot as well. I mean, all I read is autobiographies, biographies. It's very hard to purchase a book from if you're going to get it for Christmas or something. It's very difficult.
Yeah. Exactly, man. Exactly. But what? To ask you about when I'm traveling, I mean, when I'm on the road, I'm with my crew, and my crew is basically a collection of my best friends at this point, because we've been all over the world through some hellish expeditions together, and we spend a lot of time just chatting and, like you said, shooting the shit and hanging out, and of course we read and watch movies and all of that too. But it's a lot of time spent with what I would call my closest group of friends, and it's very enjoyable.
Right. So I'm going to talk about heroes real quick. So the reason I'm doing this podcast, 2 heroes. I don't know if you know them. You may. Howard Stern and Bobby Bones. So those are the 2 that are very big in my mind. So with you being a wildlife biologist and an animal expert, who or just in general, who comes to your mind as heroes or mentors?
you named one already, and that, of course, is Steve Irwin. He wasn't a traditional wildlife biologist, but his ability to bring exposure, excitement, and the love of nature to millions of people worldwide is something that any true biologist should admire, in my opinion. So that's you know, a huge one. Obviously, there's the Charles Darwins and people like that you know, are role models to all scientists.
Sure.
And then my biggest personal role model was actually my grandfather, who I would not say was a biologist, because he wasn't. He joined the army at 15 to fight in World War II. But he lived in Africa. He was a naturalist in every sense of the word, and just a great adventurer and explorer who always focused his attention on wildlife, even though he didn't have any formal scientific training.
Sure. So, being a wildlife biologist, kind of winding down here, how long of school is that? I mean, because it's a scientist. I mean, you're a scientist. So how long of school is that? Because I know a doctor is like 8 to 10 years. So how long is a wildlife biologist?
Well, there's multiple routes through that path, right? You can learn that at a good university. You can do your master's. You can do your PhD. You can do undergrad plus field work for experience and volunteer work. And I think the true answer is you are never finished schooling as a biologist. You're always learning. The world is too big and too diverse. You know, you can be certified as a wildlife biologist after about 4 years, but you can never truly finish being a student of wildlife biology, because the field is extremely broad, and honestly, it's fascinating.
Right. So, on the road, you watch movies. What kind of music do you listen to in your mind life? So, like, my favorite band of all time is Aerosmith. My favorite artist is John Mayer. I also listen to country. What about you?
I'm pretty diverse, man. I mean, I was out on the boat yesterday doing diving, and I had the country playlist on, which I haven't had on in ages. I've been on, I'm not sure if you're familiar with the genre tropical house music, but it's just kind of like happy tropical music with the steel tones and kind of some house DJ stuff in it. That's like really, really good background music, and got a good vibe. I mean, it's all over the place. I love the Beatles. It's a real mixed bunch.
Sure. So, well, man, I think that's going to do it. But I want to thank you before we get off here. I want to thank you for doing this. You're probably, besides Murph and Practical Jokers, you are the biggest star guy I've had on this show. And I want to thank you for, I mean, I'm a nobody. I mean, I'm 20 years old doing this from a house. I'm sitting in a little closet room trying to get away from the noise. So I appreciate you doing this.
It's my pleasure, man, and good for you, and good for doing the podcast. It's great. You ask great questions. You're an awesome host, and congratulations on your podcast. I hope it does really well for you.
Well, I appreciate it. So I want to, before we get off here, Forrest, my Instagram and Twitter is at I am Mr. Dylan Hodge. Go ahead and get out your socials and all that.
So to get on mine, it's just my name, Forrest Galante, FORRESTGALANTE. And if you search that on any of them, I don't have a lot of the younger ones, but I've got Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, and I'd appreciate anybody that wants to check them out. There's a lot of wildlife content.
Sure, and I looked on the on DirecTV this morning. So there's a 2-hour. I think it's the very first episode. It's a 2-hour. I guess it's a 2-hour replay of Animal Planet's Extinct or Alive. So it's coming on my time about 8 o'clock Central. So you guys need to go check that out. It's a very good show. Appreciate you doing this, Forrest.
Thanks, Dylan. Thanks for having me.